At this spot is where Ginger and I had dinner the night I proposed to her, officially proposed to her. Then we kind of knew we were going to get married, just waiting on those words. But this is the site of the old Elite restaurant. A lot of us call it Elite Cafe. It's now D Rose here at Montgomery. Even at that time, Montgomery was undergoing some changes, and things were moving out of town, and town was changing, a little bit of blight and that kind of stuff. But Ginger and I came out of the restaurant after we had finished our dinner, the Elite, and we walked up towards the center of Montgomery, and that's the route we're going to take now. We'll just talk from here. At that time, there was no circle here. Roads just came in here, and you made left and right turns. A long time ago, I remember this being Schwabel Men's Store was down here, and Pizitz, I think, was upstairs. But anyway, Ginger and I sat on the edge of the fountain, and that's where I asked her to marry me. And I wished I could remember the date. I can remember the year, but not the date. The fountain is just as pretty now as it was then. The city of Montgomery has done a yeoman's job maintaining the fountain in a pretty pristine fashion. I don't remember what year it was, but several years ago, this fountain froze over, and they took pictures of it, and it was beautiful. But it did do some damage to the fountain, and some repairs had to be made. But Ginger and I will always share Montgomery. We'll probably never leave here. She might at some point in time, but as a family, we never will. Our family's pretty well anchored here. We've got our two daughters are living here. My son lives here. Grandchildren live here. Unless they get jobs somewhere else, this is where we'll be. Well, we're going to pick up at Riverfront Park in Montgomery, Alabama. That's where we are right now. Ginger and I met on October the 4th of 1977. we married on October the 6th, 1979. 2 days later, a couple of reasons. The 6th fell on a Saturday, and it was convenient for everybody to get into town. Secondly, it was my grandparents' anniversary, so it kind of fit pretty nice. But down at Riverfront Park, what you're seeing now in some of the video that will be in this take was not the same. It was a little bit more rustic. The park in the amphitheater is pretty much the same. The train noise is the same. You'll hear it in the background. But Ginger and I chose this place because it was outdoors. It was that time of year in the fall of the year when the leaves were going to be changing, and we felt like the air would be crisp and whatnot. Well, this is the location where we had the pastor set up, who was her brother, Eugene Morris. Well, it was a windy day, and we had a little arch that had some flowers on it, but we never could get that thing to stand up. Her brother played the flute for us, Dean. Dean passed away a few years ago with pancreatic cancer, but all of her siblings are still living, Jennifer and Eugene. But anyway, this is where we stood to get married. The pastor faced in this direction. I'm going to get Emery, I'm going to turn around and put my back to the amphitheater now. Now, what you see now, from those silos up to the top left up there, Ginger walked from those silos all the way down this walkway down to me. Her grandfather gave her away. And it was a beautiful service. And if you look at the theater behind me, you can see how much room there is. Ginger and I were really blessed. All of our friends showed up. This place was full. The General Richard Montgomery is what we took everybody out on when we left to go on our, after the wedding, for the wedding party. And we took everybody that wanted to go out on the General Richard Montgomery. Now it's the Harriet. What was real funny is that I don't remember who Alabama was playing that day, but it must have been a very important ball game, because all of our friends who were Alabama fans had transistor radios and they were listening to the Alabama game while we were cruising the river. But as a footnote, my wife's mother did all of the decorations. She did all of the extra planning. She planned the food. She brought the things that were needed to prepare the food. What she didn't have with her when she left Baton Rouge, she bought here. She fixed all of the candy, all of the everything that was used at our reception, she did. And we put it on board the General Richard Montgomery and had our reception on board the ship. When Ginger and I got back, we had of course changed clothes into our street clothes out of our wedding clothes. And at that time it was all like decking, wood decking. And we had to walk up a steep walkway, and it was windy and it almost blew Ginger's hat off. But we came up that walkway, and as we came up, we walked out this corridor right here. But we took off in the car on our honeymoon, headed towards Atlanta. Well, we got up about Auburn, and we blew out a water hose. So we had to stop and put a water hose on the car before we could continue. But we went on to Atlanta, spent our honeymoon night in Atlanta. We had dinner at Pitty Pat's porch. But while we were in Atlanta, we decided we'd change our honeymoon plans. And we decided we wanted to go to the beach. So we turned around and came back home, came back to Montgomery, picked up our dog, Mr. Fred, and we took off to the beach for a few days. And that pretty much is the crux of our wedding at Riverfront Park in Montgomery, Alabama, some 39 years ago.